Hello, everybody. Happy Friday. Today's the first day or first game of a high school football season. So if you are a high school football coach, a parent of a high school player, or for some reason you're a high school player, I hope you have a great year. Hope everyone stays safe, healthy, and I hope you play incredibly hard, physical, domineering football. So, as always, if you have a question, man, this seems like it's a weird angle today. As always, if you have a question, guys, ask in the chat. I'll be more than happy to answer it. All right, here we go. Whew, I got to tell you, my back right now and all the little bullshit that I felt for whatever reason right now. I think I do know the reason, but whatever. I feel absolutely awesome. I already trained this morning, and I am going to go climb some stadium steps and smoke my legs and feel awesome, knock myself out for the game. So I'm feeling super tired. That way I calm down. All right, here we go. Aiden Smith says make sure this is the first question. All right, here we go. In the God is a Beast leader, can I substitute safety squat bar squats for the supplemental squats? Yes. And safety squat bar good mornings for the supplemental deadlift? Yes, but I certainly wouldn't do high volume deadlifts. So yes, you can swap those out. Not a problem at all. But I would be very careful. I would rather have you maybe swap a more deadlift variation than the good morning. But if the good morning drives up your deadlift, go ahead and do it. Just watch the volume and watch the weight on the good morning. I am a huge fan of especially safety squat bar good mornings. I think it did tremendous benefit to my squat and especially my deadlift. I think also that I drove that thing way too heavy for me. It just once you get to a certain point, there's a massive roll of massive drop off in returns, diminishing returns, as they say. So just make sure you load the good mornings safely. Make sure you do the good mornings in such a way that they help the deadlift, not just raise the weight that you use in the good mornings. There's a big difference to that. So understand that. All right. Man, I never know if that's Powell or Powie. Says, hey, Jim, I would like to cut down the training time without compromising volume. I was thinking about doing some assistance work between work and supplemental sets in form of supersets. For example, on deadlift day, I would do some presses or dips and some core work on a different group of muscles versus the main lift of the day. Yes, we do that all the time, especially with our assistance work. We do it sometimes on our main lifts. It just depends on how many kids are in the weight room and what we have. If there's 60 kids in there all the time, which usually obviously during the off season, there's 50 or 60 kids, we don't have that option. But if you do have the option to go do something in between your main lifts, as long as you're in pretty good shape and you're not going to compromise your main lift, you will be okay. You don't have to take those sets to failure, especially when you first start doing this. But for example, when I always try to choose something kind of easy to set up or easy to do. For example, if I was doing squats or deadlifts, I would always do push-ups or dips. Bench and presses, obviously you just do pull-ups and chin-ups. It's super easy just to climb up on there. And so huge fan of that as long as you're prepared for it. All right, second question. I would like to work on the speed on my main lifts. That's why I was thinking of not progressing with weight until I hit 10 reps on the 5-3-1 day. For the rest of the days, I'm limiting work sets for 10 reps. What are your thoughts on it? Am I overthinking it? Is it better to keep it simpler? All right, here's the thing. Here's the best way, at least in my estimation, to kind of work on the speed of your lifts. Besides your abs and low back and all that stuff. Just when you squat, listen, the most important thing is that you drive as hard as hell out of the hole of every squat, of every bench. With the deadlift, obviously you're not jamming the bar off the ground, but every rep has to be treated explosively. All right. It's not always going to happen perfectly. But so for example, if you're going to do 225 for 10, I see a lot of people, the first 5 reps, they're just doing it like a normal person would or a bodybuilder would. What you need to really understand is when you hit that hole in that first rep, that speed out of the hole has to be insane. Obviously, don't fall over. You don't have to go up on your toes, but you need to push. For example, if it's something like let's say when I was younger, I'd always do this. I'd always picture 500 pounds in the bar and how hard I would have to push if I had 500 pounds in the bar. So let's say I have 300 pounds or 315. Mentally, I would be thinking, I have to drive harder than I've ever driven before in my entire life. And I treated every single rep like that. It is very tiring to do so. A lot of times you'll sacrifice some reps at the end because you're so tired, but that's how I did it. And I think it's super important. Obviously, the other thing is understanding how to be explosive. And I think really box jumps and any kind of jumping, not just plyometrics, just basic jumping, I think does a great job. And obviously sprinting, but I don't recommend everyone do sprinting. But when you do a set, not necessarily warm-up sets, you don't want to be the guy doing the bar, like you own the bar, man. You want everyone to know how fast you are. But once it gets, around 50 or 60%, you got to learn how to push fast and push strong. And that goes for, again, not necessarily warm-ups, but when you start the work set, when you start a work set, every single rep has to be awesome. All right. And that's the best way to improve your speed. And a lot of times, even when the reps get slower, you should still be pushing and pressing and pulling as hard as you possibly can, no matter what. And then even though those look a little slow, you need to be pushing as fast as you can. I guess best way to say it. So I remember asking Dan Worth that question about the speed and stuff, because I was always, at least for me, a much more explosive lifter than I was a slow lifter. And I asked him, is there any benefit to really training too heavy where the bar speed is real slow? And he said, listen, Jimmy, as long as you're pushing as hard as you can, you are activating those fast twitch fibers and you'll be okay. So I still remember where I was. I was right by the lat pull down low row machine. And we were talking about, we started that conversation talking about powerlifting or something. I always remember that. So, all right. Christopher Diver says, hey, Jim, Morningstar equals my favorite template. Oh, you spelled favorite like a Frenchman, Chris. I'm joking. He says his Morningstar is his favorite template. I am looking for guidance on anchor assistance. For leader, I run similar to Beachbody Challenge. Thanks for everything, especially 531 forever. Hold on, let me see here. Listen, Chris, if I don't have the Morningstar in front of me, so I can't really, I'm sure there might be a Morningstar anchor in the book. Again, I don't have it near me. I'm not going to go look for it right now. The one thing I would do is Chris, if you're really trying to work on your PRs and stuff like that, I would really just do like a standard 531 PR style template, whether it's 531 and you PR, 5 week, 3 week, and 1 week, or going 3-5-1 where you just do threes and ones. I would go absolutely apeshit on there, or do a standard 531 template for your anchor. And then maybe on the 4th week, that's when you still hit those PR sets pretty hard, but you don't go crazy. And then at a 4th week, let's say you just really want to see how many reps you can do at 225 on the bench and maybe 275 on the squat. And on that week, that's your test week. So that's another thing you can do. But I'm a huge fan of kind of building yourself up physically and mentally, and really kind of going for the gusto on an anchor, whether it doesn't have to be every week, but I think that's super important to kind of get that challenge in your head. And I think PR sets, I think that is a learned skill and it's a perishable skill. So you still need to be able to push through some hard sets, especially during the anchor. So just regular 5-1 PR sets. And if you really want to hit, for example, 225 for 10 on the bench or something, work hard those first 3 weeks and kind of peak and get ready for that 4th week. So, oh man, do I love PR sets. Everything, the amount of time I wasted in high school and during classes and stuff, trying to figure out all the different sets and reps combos I could get to reach certain estimated PRs was ridiculous. I always used to do it all by longhand because I never wanted to have a calculator out because the teacher would know. If I was just scribbling on the paper, it looked like I was actually taking notes. So boy, did I get really good at what is it? Weight times reps times 0.0333 plus weight lifted. All right, here we go. Ooh, man, I wonder when I learned that. I bet you it was probably my freshman or sophomore year of high school. I still remember the magazine I read it in. Some random like track and field magazine that my dad got. All right. Eric Lewin says, number one, is there any video online of you scoring the touchdown at Arizona you talked about on Table Talk? If there is, I never saw it. I never really looked for it. I'll be completely honest. I know my dad recorded all the games, and he moved them to DVD for me. This was 15 years ago. So I know I have them around here somewhere. I don't know where they are. It kills me. So for those that don't know, I played football at the University of Arizona. I was a walk-on at the University of Arizona. And eventually I earned a scholarship. And my very first carry ever was we were playing San Diego State at San Diego State at the old Jack Murphy Stadium. I think it's called Qualcomm. Maybe it was called Qualcomm then. I don't remember. So my very first carry came on a Thursday night game. It was televised on ESPN, and my very first carry went for a touchdown. It was a 5-yard run, and I went absolutely bananas. The ref came over to me and told me to calm the fuck down. You're going to get a penalty. And I was like, man, I don't give a shit. My parents flew out to the game. My parents live in Illinois. They still do. So my parents were in the stands, and then I got to do my very first video, where you thank your mom and dad. So I thank my mom, my dad, even though they were at the game. I thanked my girlfriend at the time, and I also thanked my dog, Betty, which was just a joke for me and my friends. So, all right. Did you ever score another touchdown? Yes, I scored. I only scored like 4 touchdowns, I believe 3 or 4. I think I scored 2 that year, and then the next year was my final year. I scored, I think, another 2. I got to score against Arizona State, which was awesome. So, okay, how good were you in high school? I was an above-average high school player. I certainly wasn't elite by any stretch of the imagination. No way. Especially now that I'm a coach, and I watch a lot of football players play, obviously, every week. And obviously, when I went to college and I got to be surrounded by some really amazing athletes, I was above average. I certainly wasn't elite in any way. The one thing I did, a couple things I did really well is, one, I was always eligible. So my grades were always good. Number 2, I always knew the plays. And number 3, I was always in really good shape. So those 3 things will get you very far, whether you're in high school or you're in college. So I don't know. I was good enough. I was stubborn enough to play. Let's just put it that way. But I was nowhere. I mean, there's guys who are a million times better than me. And there's guys that were much, much better than me too that didn't ever play. I played in front of them just because I was eligible. I was always in good shape and I knew the plays. I show up on time, all that stuff, all the easy stuff, so to speak. So I can tell you, though, being a part of London high school football and being their strength coach and all that stuff, strength-wise, I was no one's even come close to me. So that's been kind of weird. I'll be completely honest. Just with the lower body stuff, I would smoke all of them, as even a freshman or sophomore. So, with squats and cleans and trap bar and stuff like that, and running and jumping. So I don't know. I mean, there's some great athletes. So just because you're strong doesn't mean you're a great athlete. So, but yeah, that's the only thing that's really kind of taken me back was just the strength level I had, even at a very light body weight. So, and that's, I mean, obviously I had probably some genetics, but I was so obsessed with training, it was stupid. I mean, stupid how much obsessive I was. I must have driven my parents batty. Oh my God, my parents deserve an award for how much they must have listened to me talk about training. It was all day, every day for decades. That's all I talk about. All right, here was a question. Jim, you ever listen to Alien Weaponry? Nope. Maybe I have. I don't know. I'm not very familiar with a lot of the new stuff. although I'm wearing one of my favorite bands of all time, Indian. So, but yeah, I'm not, maybe I've heard them, like I said, but I'm not familiar with them. So, all right. Victor writes, I am doing 5s per pro with 5 sets of 5 of FSL, and I'm combining that with MMA. Could I use the deload week in the middle of the cycle when MMA training takes a toll and just keep going after that? Yes, 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 yes. Victor, you're listening to your body and you're being smart. Yes, you're solid, buddy. Man, I'll be honest, dude. I am so effing happy right now that you wrote that, because you're listening to your body and you're doing the smart thing. You take that, especially when you're training and you're doing a sport, you've got to take deloads. You got to listen to your body. If something's taking a dump, you got to pull back a little bit and be smart. When you feel good, that's fine. Attack it. But when you feel like you're taking a huge shit, you got to back off and be smart. The most important thing is you're physically prepared for your sport, not that you do your workout, whatever was planned. Super important to remember. All right. Gage Smith says, I'd love to hear a little more about the running focused template that your wife is doing that you mentioned a couple of weeks ago. Well, Gage, you probably have to ask my wife, because I'll be honest, I'm not that familiar. I know she schedules her runs. She has different goals for each run day, harder day, like a medium day. It's all really, I don't know. She tells me, but it just goes in one ear and out the other, because, that's just the way it goes. Just like everything I tell my wife goes in one ear and out the other. Just like I'm sure what happened to my parents when oh my God, I love my parents to death. I'm super happy that I had great parents. I mean, the amount of support I got from them, but man, just being around my mom and dad, and when they come here and when I go there, they're still so patient with me. That's just a pain in the ass. So Gage, I don't know what she's doing with the running. I know she lifts twice a week, and I think she was lifting 3 times a week for a little bit. And I think that got a little too much for her. And plus, if we're going to be honest, she doesn't really need to lift that much more. She just lifts to raise her general physical preparedness for the running. It's not done. She's very, very strong. She could probably deadlift 225 for 10 still. And she just did, I think, 20 pull-ups today or whatever it was. So in one set. So, yeah, I'm not, but I lifts twice a week. And I think she does bench and squat on one week, for example, and then press and deadlift on the other week, or trap bar. She does a trap bar. So, all right. So Gage, I'm sorry, man. I don't really know. I apologize. So, howdy, Jim. And I don't know who this is. Thank you for being such a great motivator. Well, thank you. It's better to be called a motivator than a cheerleader. I cannot stand cheerleaders. I'm not talking about the girls with pom-poms. I'm talking about coaches that's their major skill, is just yelling at people. He writes, I am still working PT from ruptured quad tendon. Wow. Any suggestions to warm my knee prior to my PT and outside workout? Thanks, BJK. Well, at least you're not the BTK killer, right? No, you're the BJK. All right, so I don't know enough about this, but I would probably, the one thing that really warms up my knees, well, 2 things. One is the Airdyne, or riding a bike. I think that does a great job for warming up my knees. And the other thing is backwards sled drags. And I just hold, it doesn't have to be very heavy either. Just put a little bit of weight on the sled, use I always use the Spud Ink straps are amazing. I've worn those things out and they still working very well, but I just walk backwards and you will feel that almost immediately, warming up the knees and obviously your quads. I'm a huge fan of that. Obviously you can sled drag forward too. Whenever I generally sled drag forward, I kind of dig my heels in and I call it German walking. So you really get a lot of hamstring. When it gets really heavy, that's when you just kind of lean over and dig in, which is fine. A lot of obviously quad and hips and glutes and stuff. But I would probably recommend those 2 things. So Airdyne, or bike, I should say, and backwards sled dragging. And as long as you're able to do it, man. Again, I am not a PT, brother. So take that advice with a grain of salt. All right, here goes BMook19. He says, good morning. I've mentioned before I have hip issues, including a replacement. Woo! My programming is press and chin up dominant. Good for you. Lately, I've been doing narrow incline bench with weighted chins. How would you program pressing 3 days and deadlift 1 day with squatting for assistance? Well, first of all, I wouldn't press 3 days. I would press 2 days. So that's what I would do. So I would press 3 days, or I'm sorry, 2 days. So Mondays and Fridays as an example. And then I would deadlift on Wednesday. And then I would, you said squatting for assistance. I don't know what you mean by squatting for assistance, like dumbbell squat or just barbell squat. If I were you, I'd probably put that on the deadlift day. So all your hard, like lower body stuff is on one day, and then see how you do. If it stinks, if it's like too much work on your hip, I would put the squat either on the Monday or Friday. And the other thing I would do is I would do a box squat at the height that your hip allows you to squat at. So it doesn't have to be parallel or anything like that, which I assume you understand that. I am a huge fan of doing appropriate height box squats, especially if you've got hip or knee issues. I'm a huge fan of that. Again, don't think you have to squat to a box to parallel to make it work. It works fine with whatever is appropriate for your body type. Super important to remember that, guys. All right. Sir to you. That's the your handle. Here we go. Hi, Jim. Due to hip and back issue, I can't squat, but can do Bulgarian split squats. Due to the lower loading and extra balance challenge, should I structure these differently from standard 5-3-1 template? Yes, without a doubt. Usually what I do with the Bulgarian splits is I treat it like an assistance exercise. And at least in the beginning, it's usually sets of 5 and 10 per leg. I would probably, again, shoot for maybe 50 total reps. You can adjust the weight. Either you can hold dumbbells, you can wear a weight vest, which I think helps greatly because then you don't have to hold on to anything. And obviously you can always use a barbell or a safety squat bar done with a Hatfield with the handles. I think is really, really good for if you're going to use a barbell, so to speak, for the Bulgarian split squats. But I would, once you start loading it very heavy with the barbell or even with dumbbells, I would probably look for total reps. And once you get to there, minus the warm-up sets and everything like that, I'd probably look between probably 20 and 30 total reps per leg. And just be smart about the loading with that. But again, if you're going to use a straight bar or a barbell, I should say, I would really recommend using the safety squat bar and using the handles that usually come with that bar on your rack. Okay. Huge fan of that too. And just make sure the heavier you go, the narrower you're going to use a narrower stance than if you had body weight stuff, but make sure it's not so narrow. You're just kind of using the crappy range of motion too, because it kind of takes out the entire reason for doing them. So be smart about that. I used to love doing those things. It was new to me, one of those things where everything is new. I got really good at those. It didn't carry over to anything now. So, I got better at them. I'm sure my legs got stronger, but it didn't improve my squat at all. But yeah, your legs will definitely get stronger. Okay, here we go. Johan writes, I just started a 3-5-1 template with PRs, jokers, and FSL. I got a bit confused reading about leaders and anchors. Do I need to consider these in the template? No. Let it rip. You'll be fine. Let it rip. You'll be fine. Just keep on training hard. Make sure you're pulling your training maxes are smart. That's the most important thing. Make sure your technique is dialed in. Again, training max, don't make it too heavy, and really push the assistance and build some muscle. Eat and sleep, and you'll be solid. You'll be solid. Jeff Rourke is here. Jeff, I just answered your question on the reverse hypers with another question. So look for that on the forum. Good morning, Jeff. All right, Raymond Kane says, hey, Jim, I really enjoy your weekly YouTube sessions. Thank you, Raymond. Have a great weekend. Best wishes from Ireland. I've said this a million times. I got to do a seminar in Ireland. I spent about a week there, and it was absolutely amazing. Loved it. I loved everything about that. Now, granted, I was in Dublin, and I got to go a little bit in the countryside and stuff. So I will tell you this, though, the rural Irish bars are not what we think Irish bars are in America. I will say that. So there we go. It was awesome, though. God, there's so many colors of green in Ireland just from the rain. It's unbelievable how beautiful it is out there. And that's why they call it the Emerald Isle, right? All right, Little Jazzy says, hey, Jim, I've got some minor sciatica pain going right now. Would you recommend I avoid deadlifting later today? Listen, the one thing I would do is I have sciatica, but I have like a million other issues. Sciatica is the least of them, if I'm going to be completely honest. There's a billion videos out there, and most of them contain about the same thing, about, kind of rehabbing your sciatica. Whether or not you take the day off deadlifting is kind of up to you. Listen, if I'm going to be honest, because you're asking the question, I would probably take the deadlift off, if I'm going to be honest. If you were going to kind of tough it out, you would have already made up your mind. So when there is a doubt, there is no doubt. But I would invest some time into looking kind of some sciatica relief issues. And yours, because it's mild and probably hasn't been there, will probably alleviate very quickly with some very easy exercises and stretches or whatever will help you. So again, when in doubt, there is no doubt. Avoid the deadlift today. Come back and next week and kick some ass, man. But make sure you take care of that before it becomes much, much worse. Josh Hayes says, I found out I have 2 hernias. Well, congratulations. I have 3. I'm so happy for you. One in my groin and the other in my stomach area. And moving forward after surgery, do you feel I could still do 5 through run? I have been told I will never lift heavy again. I don't know who told you that, Josh. Whew, that's kind of stupid. How do they know what lifting heavy is? Right? I mean, when I was very strong, a 500-pound squat wasn't very heavy. When I was 18-year-old, 500 squat was very heavy. So I'm not sure how they can define heavy. You'll be fine. Just make sure you take care that you let everything heal and build back up. But yes, you can do any kind of weight training program provided you're healthy again. You'll be fine. As long as you, again, heal up. Listen, I'm not, heal up and do what is necessary so you don't get injured again. But I've known plenty of dudes, plenty of guys who lifted incredibly heavy after hernia surgery. I mean, a lot of them. So, all right. Christopher Diver says, Jim, what are your favorite assistance exercises outside of walrus training? All right. So obviously for the abs and low back, I will always say the ab wheel, hanging leg raises, weighted sit-ups, especially Roman chair sit-ups. For the lower back, good mornings and back raises. You could also do pull-throughs and stuff like that. I'm not a huge fan of them, but I can recognize for a lot of people that they love them. Again, pull-throughs and kettlebell swings and stuff like that will definitely fit the bill. For upper body, obviously dips, chin-ups, push-ups, lots of dumbbell pressing at different angles. Huge fan of dumbbells. That really drove my bench press about the 2000, 2001. Huge fan of that. Obviously overhead press, any kind of dumbbell overhead press will work too. Let's see what else we got. Shoulders. I mean, all that stuff is kind of shoulder oriented. But any kind of full range plate raise or dumbbell raise, front raise, all that good stuff. Side raises, rear raises are all good. You can do them for super high reps. The one thing we always used to do is grab a pair of 25-pound plates and do 20 rear raises, and then right into 20 side raises, and right into 20 full range plate raises for a set of total of 60 reps. Let's see. Obviously, curls and stuff like that are fine. Tricep pushdowns, tricep extensions. Probably my favorite all-time exercise that I got the most out of that helped my deadlift and my bench and my press was single-arm dumbbell rows done as heavy as possible, also known as crock rows. But I think just regular dumbbell rows help as long as you're pushing those hard. It immediately changed for the better my deadlift strength and my grip and with my lockout. It made a huge difference. Obviously, for benching, obviously upper back and lat is massive, and I think that changed that too. So all those I think are my, what I would consider my favorite. I guess for the legs, I love single leg work. Single leg work never really carried over directly to my squat and deadlift and stuff, but it just made my legs much, much stronger. I'd also throw tons of sled work and hills. Whether you're running the hills or walking with a heavy vest, I don't think that could ever be discounted. Again, I don't think there's a tremendous carryover like how we would see a carryover for your squat and deadlift. But if you can carry, climb 4,000 steps with a 55-pound vest on, and how do I put this? And not just sit down for 30 minutes in between each, row or so. I think it will do great things for your body, great things for your mind, great things for your lungs, and your legs get incredibly strong. So, all right, here we go. Elo says, hey, did you do anything special to maintain knee health while chasing your 1,000-pound squat? So generally speaking, I've been very lucky with my knees and my hips, incredibly lucky. Part of that, I think I made my own luck because I was always in really good shape. This is during football, and my legs were always very, very, very strong for me. And so I think that's number one. Number two is the one thing is box squatting helped my knees tremendously because it took the bounce out of the bottom a little bit. And as anyone who's ever box squatted and free squatted knows, box squats are so much easier on the knees. So when I was really training heavy, everything was done pretty much on a box. It allows you to sit back, open up, and really take the stress off your knees. But if I'm going to be completely honest, a lot of that stuff is genetic. You get a little lucky. There's guys that once they injure their knee, they're just always injuring their knee. I was never like that. And I'm very lucky. I've had bad luck with other shit, if I'm going to be honest. But the other thing I should probably say is even though I'm doing like a ton of body weight squats and weight vest squats and climbing stairs and climbing hills and sleds, the other thing is whenever I personally now do a set of any type of high volume squats, I always wear knee sleeves, And the difference is I remember one of the first days I did, my crazy walrus training. The next day I didn't wear knee sleeves. And the next day my knees were killing me. So the next day when I did, the same basic workout, I slid on some knee sleeves and they weren't terribly tight at the time. And I'm obviously not going to wear super tight sleeves. But the point is just having the sleeves on, zero soreness. My knees have been fine. I've done a boatload of weight vest, and body weight squats, and I've had zero knee issues. So the only thing that I've do whenever I feel a little bit of a twinge or something is I always foam roll my IT band. I don't go nuts. I do it for a minute on each side, and that any kind of knee pain seems to go away. So, all right, here we go. Paul Dybert says, great band. I'm not sure what you're referring to, but I hope Indian. Their album, From All Purity, which was their latest album, is to me a perfect album. It's unbelievable, but they don't really have a bad album in their discography, if I'm going to be honest. And let me just say, they're not a normal, usual band. So if you're expecting verse, chorus, or anything like that, you're not going to get it. It sounds like a train wreck from hell, and it's awesome. So, all right, here we go. Adam Jones says, hey, Jim, as always, thanks for doing this. A great podcast with Zach Evanesh. I just did a podcast with Zach Tuesday, and I think it's already up. So Zach's a longtime friend of mine. I've known him for 20 some odd years. I love that guy to death. And I'm telling you, Zach loves training, and Zach's a good person. I wouldn't remain friends with him this long if I didn't think he was a great person. So, all right. On the podcast, you discussed taking the kids through their assistants to show them the meaning of failure. Should it always be done to failure? The answer is no. It doesn't have to be done to failure, but in order for you to understand about where failure is, you have to learn how to feel what failure is. So no, it doesn't always have to be done to failure. If you do that, you're going to wear yourself out. The other thing is one of the good things about taking assistance work to failure You can do it much more often than if you take barbell lifts to failure. I think everyone kind of knows that. There's a price to pay for the barbell, guys. It's a big price, so be smart about that. Johan says, do you think hang cleans can have a place as an accessory exercise? I did them for a while on upper body days, but felt like it was hard because of recovery from deadlifts and squats. I did hang cleans for forever when I was a young buck. I loved hang cleans. I think they're amazing movement if you can do them correctly. I would not do them as an accessory exercise. I would do them as a main lift, and I would really make sure that the volume on the hang clean, especially when you're learning it, is high enough to learn the lift, but not heavy enough to compromise everything. So be smart about that. Huge fan of the hang clean. I loved it. So yes, the recovery will be hard. That's why you keep the volume low and just take your time to learn the lift. You don't need to learn it in a week. Take the next 6 months and really kind of perfect it. So you can do, for example, if you're lifting 3-4 times a week, you can do hang cleans twice a week. And as long as the volume is low and just learning how to do it, I think you'll be all right. But you don't need to do like 50 reps or anything like that. You can do 10 to 15 good reps and you'll be done. Baki, I don't know how to, Hanma says, hey, Jim, can I do squat AMRAP twice a week using the original 5-3-1 program? Yeah, you could probably do it. I don't know if I do it much longer than 1 or 2 cycles, but I'm sure you could rip it out as long as you feel good and as long as your body's prepared, and that you also realize that other parts of your training are going to be compromised. That's fine. Listen, you can't push everything into a program and expect everything to remain the same. When you put more of something in the training, something's going to have to come out or something's going to be sacrificed. That's just the way it goes, guys. Okay. All right. John Watt says, hey, Jim, I'm a big fan of walrus training. What do you think of bent rows instead of pull-ups? You can do them if you want. I'm a huge fan of pull-ups. If you can't do pull-ups, I would really, really recommend doing rack chins, banded pull-ups or chin-ups, and what's the other thing? Fat man rows. So, yeah, you can do the bent rows if you want. But you can do whatever you want on the walrus training, guys. It's pretty much a hodgepodge of you just kind of taking the basic template and then just playing with the exercises and the sets and reps and stuff like that. So, all right, here we go. Here we go. Powell says, or Powie, sorry, I appreciate all the help and support. Well, I appreciate you asking questions, man. Thank you for making my training interesting and stronger. By the way, my nickname, here he goes. Pronunciation would be something like Pavi. There is an I. Okay, Pavi. I got it. Okay. Hopefully I remember that, but don't kick me in the nuts if I don't. So Povi or Pavi. All right, there we go. All right. Ello says, what single song or album have you willingly listened to? I like that. Most of your entire life. Oh, boy. I'm going to start listing a lot of these things. So one, Morbid Tales by Celtic Frost. I love that album. I still listen to it today. Slayers, Rain and Blood, South of Heaven, and Seasons in the Abyss I listen to all the time. Let me think of when I listened to a ton of Misfits and Samhain or Samhain. That's what all those gothy crazy bitches say, right? It's Samhain. Well, who cares? I'll pronounce it however I want. But I'm a huge fan of the Misfits. So I would say, and I'd probably say Master of Puppets and Ride the Lightning from Metallica. So I still listen to all that stuff today. In fact, during the in-season training, I control all the music all the time, but I have a playlist of songs for the kids, and they get exposed to all kinds of crazy shit. So I'm not sure if anyone knows this, but when I first started training the kids, one of the stipulations was I get to control the music. And one of the kids asked me if they could, and I said, you are more than welcome to man the music station as long as you, one, out-total me, and two, sell more books than I do. Then you're free to do whatever you want with the music. And so far, no one's really taken me up on that. So, but yeah, man, Celtic Frost, Slayer, Metallica, and the Misfits, and Samhain. I still once I get on a kick with an album too, I'll just keep on listening to it over and over. And that's one of the best things about training, 2 times a day is I can just blast the Misfits albums. And, each song is like a minute 30. And I sing along while I'm training. And my wife thinks I'm crazy when I'm singing, I'm no goddamn son of a bitch. You better think about it, baby. I ain't no god. All right, here we go. Okay. Okay, John Watt, you just asked this question. Yes, you can do bent over rows. Listen, if you having tendonitis in your elbows, this is the best way. Is once the tendonitis goes away, do not do pull-ups with your palms facing away. Do them all with a neutral grip. Beep. Palms facing each other, guys. It makes a huge difference. Huge difference. So that is my my bro tip for you today. All right. Says, hey, Jim, this is M. Ray J. What box height do you use for your tall athletes who can't do regular barbell squats? What's tall for you above 6 foot? How tall are these kids on average who do barbell box squats? Can you share the brand of the box and what box you have in the facility? Right now, we don't have anyone doing box squats. Everyone is free squatting, at least unless I'm thinking of. So what's tall for you? I don't really understand. Listen, if the kid, it doesn't matter his height. If the kid can't free squat properly and he can box squat perfectly, then we'll just box squat him. I'm not tied to a certain lift. As long as the whole goal is to make them stronger, get their legs stronger. So for example, if he front squatted perfectly, then that kid would front squat. If he front squatted, box squatted perfectly, he would do it. I had a kid who safety squat, box squatted. He wasn't tall. He was probably 6 foot or so. So I'm not exactly sure. Dude, the height of the box is not so much based on how tall he is as it is what box height can he do with good form. So if that means it's a 14-inch box, then it's 14. If it's 16, then it's 16. If it's 18, it's 18. So it's more about how his technique is and not so much his height. So the brand of the box, we have like wooden boxes that someone made in our facility, and we also have the Elite FTS box squat box too. That's the one that I have in my gym. So, we've had some kids have to box squat on that, and it's an absolute beast of a box. Huge fan of that. So the Elite FTS box squat box. All right. Robert Vasquez says, hey, Jim, do you know if Matt Rhodes has ever used boring but strong supplemental lifts with his version of Krypteia? I don't know what Matt's done with that stuff, so I do not know, Robert. I apologize. Do you think there would be any negative impact to it overall? The only negative impact I could see is just you're doing a lot of sets of the assistance work and the supplemental work. So you could try it out, but I would not do it for every single lift, and I would probably start with like either squat, the bench, or the press, or something like that. I would definitely wouldn't do it with the deadlift. So I don't think there's a negative impact. I just don't think that you can do it for every single lift. I wouldn't advise that at all. Christopher Diver says, do you have an archive of all your old templates you've written? I do not. I know there's a guy on the forum, Dan, who has saved just about everything. And he occasionally puts up, copies and pastes something into the forum. And so I do not, though. I really wish I would have done that. It would have required some foresight on my part. And honestly, I don't really have that good of foresight. So I do not have an archive, but there is a whole bunch of old stuff on our paid forum. So one of the issues that we had is we had a guy who was not terribly happy with me, and he wiped the forum. He hacked in and did a bunch of shit to us, and we lost probably the first 7 years of the forum or so. And, what are you going to do? Haters going to hate. Oh, boy, did he send me some nasty stuff. or someone did. I'm sure it was him, but maybe it wasn't. All right, here we go. Have you ever trained in any martial arts in wrestling, in school, boxing? I'm not sure what you mean, Chris. Have you ever trained? Are you asking me if I ever did, or do I train people? I wrestled for 1 year in junior high. It was the only year in our school that you could play basketball and wrestle at the same time. They split the seasons. So I wrestled in junior high. I did very, very, very well, but that was just because I was already lifting weights and I just out-muscled. I made it to the state meet and I got my ass absolutely handed to me by kids who had been wrestling forever. I had wrestled for, 8 weeks or something. It wasn't a very long season. So, but there, you can win a lot with strength, but if I didn't really know anything about wrestling at all. So maybe sometime I'll tell you my first ever wrestling match ever. I had never even practiced wrestling because I was still in basketball. The seasons overlapped by I think 2 weeks. So my first wrestling match, I had no idea what I was doing, never wrestled. But I'll save that for another time. Now, as far as I think training, I train wrestlers all the time because they're also football players. And actually this Tuesday, I'm volunteering at a boxing gym and training some of the kids there because I love kids and I want to help them out. So I'm doing that this Tuesday. So there you go. All right. Robert Vasquez. Sorry, I'm boring but big listen, I'm not very familiar with what Rhodes' version of Crypte is, so I'm not quite sure, man. Listen, the only thing I'd tell you, if you're don't know, you're probably better off doing sets of 5 than sets of 10 with that. I'll be completely honest. So, all right. Mike O'Tren says, any plans on making these Q&As available as podcasts? Would be much easier to listen to after the air. Appreciate the ton of free content and also join the forum, guys. Thank you, Mike. Listen, Mike, I'd have to have someone do all that stuff. I am not familiar how to pull audio or anything like that. I'm not trying to be cool because I don't know a lot of stuff. I'm just not. I used to be very good with some of this, technology and all this stuff. But to be completely honest, ever since James was born, I just kind of went off. I just got so much stuff going on. I can't keep up with a lot of this stuff. I'm sure I could do a better job marketing and do weekly videos and all that stuff. I just don't have time. And so I will ask. I got a guy that does all the YouTube shorts and does all that stuff. So maybe he can help me out, or he can, I'll just pay him and he can do it. So that, Mike, I appreciate that. I will write that down. Let me see if I can find my pen. Hold on 1 second, people. There we go. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. All right, here we go. Guitar CPA says, hey, Jim, I've been out of lighting for 8 years. I'm saying lifting. I'm guessing you said lifting. Okay, I've been out of lifting for 8 years. I had a 300-pound bench before, 500 for squat and deads. Now I'm weak and want to get strong again with 531 accessory program. What 531 accessory program? We good to get back at it. So these are the couple things I would recommend. Is I would recommend just a normal 531 program. That's one. Number 2 would be the boring but big program. So you could use that too. And number 3 is the regular 531 program with what we call first set last work. So any of those will work. The most important thing, you're ready for this, is make sure your training maxes aren't overzealous, because I know you used to be fairly strong, right? And so you should not be in a rush to add weight to the bar. Just add muscle, get your body used to it. And I would, if I were you, man, you've been out of lifting for 8 years, I would give myself 1 year of just solid, good work. So make sure your barbell lifts are we just fast and strong, and then push the shit out of the assistance work. Work on building muscle, work on raising your GPP with the assistance work, obviously, doing some walking, some prowler work and stuff like that. But you're out for 8 years, man. You're not don't strive to get back to where you were in 6 weeks or 6 months. give yourself a year of prep. So you're really just kicking ass. And don't get overzealous with the training maxes, guys. That has always been my downfall, both as a lifter and as a coach. And I have to constantly remind myself that the training max is not indicative of where I am strength-wise. It is a training tool so that I have appropriate bar speed and my body's recovered. All right? Super important you remember that. So good luck, guitar CPA, and just be smart. All right. Okay. Matthew says, hey, Jim, I got 2 questions. I like pushing my conditioning hard, but find my legs are always fatigued. Yep, so are mine. My legs are always tired. I want to swap for mostly road work, but feel out of shape if I don't push hard. Any advice to get out of my head? Well, I don't really know what you mean. I mean, I understand, but that's kind of a mental thing. The one thing is, consistent work is more important than intensity of work. That doesn't mean you just lollygag around and bullshit, but the most important thing is that you're consistently doing something, you don't have to do it balls to the wall. So I can tell you, as my wife likes to say, consistency is a superpower. All right. So you don't have to push all the time, especially with conditioning. So that's, I guess, if once you learn that lesson, you learn that there's going to be some kind of average days out there, and that's fine. As an example, I have a stair climbing protocol that I do where I climb stairs. That's basically one of the big things I do for conditioning in the summer. I pushed it one day and I finished in 24 minutes. Absolute ass kicker. I felt amazing. It was a huge PR for me. 3 or 4 days later, I do the same thing. Weather's fine. It takes me 34 or 35 minutes and I feel like I'm absolutely going to die. So you're going to have good days and bad days. And even the time that I felt I was going to die, I didn't push much harder than I was able to. So I didn't punish myself. I knew I was just having a bad day. And the most important thing was I just finished and I was able to fight another day. So, all right. Question number 2. Have you been listening to Knocked Loose's new record at all? I have not. I'll be honest. I don't really know anything about Knocked Loose. I'm sorry, man. Listen, I'd love to keep up with all the new bands and stuff, but everything is bananas. There's so much new music coming out. So, and I'll be honest, I got so many CDs and so many records and stuff. I just listen to the stuff I've been pretty much have. I'll never run out of music for the rest of my life. So, although I just bought, I can't remember, Gorgoroth album. I had to order it from Paraguay. It's not the new Gorgoroth. It was an old Gorgoroth album. I could only find I think it was Paraguay. And then I ordered a whole bunch of, I think a new album from Whores. If you guys are familiar with Whores, I love that band. I love that noise rock sound. It can be done poorly, but I love how they do it. So, all right, here we go. It says, hey, Jim, I heard that for hypertrophy, you need plus 12 sets per body part. This is hard with 5-3-1 plus 3 categories. Do you think that 5-3-1 in bodybuilding template is best suited for muscle? 12 sets per body part. Okay, I'm not sure what you're asking. Instead of the typical 1 main lift plus 3. I don't know if you need 12 sets per body part. I'm not sure how that works itself out because there's so much overlap. So, for example, if you do chin-ups and pull-ups, you're still getting your biceps in, right? And what about dips? What is that? Chest, shoulders, triceps? I don't understand. So it's that stuff. And man, I don't know. There's so many of those theories out there. And I think people just kind of put that up. Listen, our kids get plenty strong even during in-season training where they're doing lifting twice a week. I've seen kids, the most important thing is once a kid dials in or anyone dials in their food intake and they're smart about their protein intake, magically a lot of that stuff, whatever you believe, will take care of itself. So personally, I would worry about your protein. I would worry about consistently getting whatever protein you need. And when I say consistently, I mean not a week, not 2 weeks. I'm talking at least 6 months, never missing a day. Everything is dialed in perfect, and make sure you're pushing your assistants. and pushing the reps, bar speed, and all that stuff. I don't think you need X amount of sets. You could do 12 sets of whatever, and if you're not pushing it hard, it's really not going to make that much of a difference. So don't worry about the sets. Worry about the protein intake. Worry about the effort. Worry about the consistency. You'll be golden. There you go. All right. Sinking Boats says, hey, Jim, when doing a lot of running, how would you dial back the lifting to just stay fit and maintain? Is setting a very conservative training max and not progressing it as often as a good way to go? Yes. Now, everyone's going to be a little bit different. I would set the training maxes so that you're always able to get 5 awesome reps on each week, possibly 10 if you're feeling really good. And the other thing is I would dial back a lot of the lower body work. When we train during the season, we just have one lower body day really, and that's the trap bar. And we make very good progress. Our kids always, unless they get injured, always are stronger at the end of the season than they are at the beginning. Now, they're young kids. I totally get that. But we have kids who've been in the program for 5 or 6 years, and they're still getting stronger. So the one big thing you're going to have to understand is you're going to have to dial back the lower body volume. And the other thing is I never let them have a bad day training. So if I see that the kids aren't going to have a great day, like they're just tired, then we do something that allows them to have success and they're not lifted very heavy. For example, this past week, one of the groups I was training, I was just watching them do the warm-up sets, watching their body language. So instead of going up and hitting a hard set, heavy sets, we just did their second set, and we did that for 7 minutes. Do as many reps as you can, and the kids did amazing, absolutely amazing. So sometimes when you're training in the in-season or you're training and you're focused on conditioning, I never let them have a bad day. So if I need to take a step back and do something a little bit different, I let them have a good day, even if it's lighter and it's just kind of lying, so to speak. So yeah, definitely conservative max. And I wouldn't worry so much about progressing as long as the reps are getting good. You're going to need a kind of a good coach to do that, and you have to be smart about that. So I hope that makes sense, Sinking Boats. I will say this, people can science a lot of this stuff up, but man, there is an art to coaching, understanding who you are, who your athletes are, and how to manipulate the variables in the training session so that they have success. All right, here we go. Hey, Jim, any advice on adding sprints to a 5-3-1 program? Assuming I have a bit of running base, I'd like to add some speeder work for GPP reasons. Yes, I would probably figure out what day you want to do them. So whether that's after an upper body day or bunch day, after a squat day or on the day off, I don't know. I do not know, because a lot of times if you do it on squat day, your hamstrings are fatigued. If you do it after squat day, you'll get that same thing. The most important thing to remember is when you're doing sprints is you have to treat it as if it is a lifting exercise. So it's not, you're going to have to take something out with your lower body and be smart about it. All right. The other thing is I would put a cap on the total amount of distance run. So, for example, start off with, listen, I'm not going to do any more than 500 yards or 500 meters of sprints today. And I don't know if you're doing true sprints, like 10, 12-minute rest, 5 to 10, whatever minutes rest, or if you're doing sprint conditioning, that's a whole nother ball game too. But I don't think you're going to be doing that. So, again, we just kind of talked about this, lower the volume on the lower body work, and be careful about the hamstring work, and then treat that as an exercise and be smart about the volume. And the other thing too is when you first doing the sprints, learn how to build up and then go back down. Don't be getting out of your stance super explosive, especially in the beginning. You're going to tear a hamstring. So, and learn to build up over time. So your first set's, 60%, then 70%, 80%, and I would probably stick around 80 to 90% effort and work on your technique. All right, Cheeks says, hey, I'm late to the game. How to gain size in my 40s with 5-3-1? How should my training, being that I'm over 40, be different for what I'm trying to gain muscle compared to folks that are younger, especially given that I got a little bit of a late start? Well, the number one thing you're going to have to, and this is whether you're 40 or not 40, but especially the older you get, the more important diet is. So you're going to have to really dial that in. Number two is you're going to have to be very, if your goal is to gain muscle, I'd be very smart with your training maxes. So you're not getting hurt, okay, with the main lifts. Make sure the reps are fast and strong and awesome. And the other thing would be to watch the volume of the assistance work, all that stuff. But I would really learn how to push those sets incredibly hard. Again, you don't always have to go to failure, but I think that's super important. That will allow you to recover a little better because you're doing it with assistance work. And I would also not be in a rush, so to speak. So don't be looking for gains in 6 weeks. Again, look at about a year long of good training, but the diet's going to be the big thing, and the effort and the assistance work is going to be a huge thing. And just watch the volume. If you're not recovering, man, you're not going to get any better. So the other thing is, if you're over 40, get your testosterone checked and maybe, get that taken care of, because that will make a giant difference. But that's up to you and whatever you believe in. So, oh boy, I got to get moving here. All right. Christopher says, what do your deadlift, squat, bench, overhead press numbers look like now? I don't know. I don't do any of that stuff anymore. I just do weight vest training right now. So I don't do any of that stuff. So they look like big fat zeros. So, all right, I'm going to have to get through here, guys. Hey, Jim, I love your plans. I'm 43 and lift to supplement Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and my wife's to-do list. If I only lift 2 to 3 days a week, do you recommend full body or upper lower? Listen, if you can train 3 days a week full body, I think that's awesome. But if you're 43, you might be a little compromised there. So if I were you, I would either do full body 2 days a week, or if you lift 3 days a week, I would do upper on Monday and Friday and lower on Wednesday. I think that's awesome for someone. I really do. That's how we train what we call on our preseason. So we bench on Mondays and Fridays, and we trap bar on Wednesdays. And obviously we're doing lower body stuff on Monday and Friday, but our heavy work is done only 1 day a week. And it makes a huge difference. So I would highly recommend that. Hey, John, can you go over the best exercises for your bodybuilder, the upper, and athlete, the lower? I'm not sure exactly what you're asking. The exercises for athlete to lower, we always stick with the main lift, the barbell lift, squat and trap bar, or squat and deadlift. And then because we do much more running and jumping, obviously, with athlete to lower, so you're going to have to pare back the assistance work on the lower body. We've talked about this a couple times today. It's like a reoccurring theme. So maybe some single leg work, some hamstring work. However you get that done, recommend glute ham raises, back raises, and obviously abdominal work, super important. For your upper body, you can just go ham loaf, man, as long as your recovery is not going bananas. But when we athlete the lower, we do a ton of jumping, different kinds of jumps, not just plyometrics, but box jumps. We do a lot of running, a lot of prowler, and a lot of sled work. So you basically go ham loaf style on the upper body. Doesn't mean you spend 2 hours in there. You should be able to get everything done with your assistants in at least 30 minutes. We get it done. We get our assistants done in about 15 minutes. And those kids work hard, especially once they learn how to train very hard. But the most important thing with athlete to lower is that you're explosive and that you learn how to push and pull sleds and learn how to jump. That's what we do. So it's an awesome little formula for athletes. Okay. Papa says, when does blasphemy sound best for squat or for deadlifting? I would probably say squatting. Squatting to me is the biggest, ballsiest lift in the world, because once you get that bar on your back and take a step back out, you can always drop a deadlift bar. You drop a squat bar, man, there's repercussions. So yeah, God bless me. They were so ahead of their time. It's unbelievable. All right, Steve writes, have you ever thought of programming a template or project with Peg? I have not. Peg is super busy. He's got kids. He's working a ton. So that would, with our schedules, that just wouldn't work very well, I'll be honest. Okay. Johan says, are quad extensions unnecessary for reaching a strong squat? Yes, They're not necessary. I guess that's what you're asking. No, you don't need to do leg extensions for a strong squat. Also wondering if calf work can be excluded or if calf strength affects the squat in a considerable way. I'm sure it does at some point, but for a lot of people, that's concentrating on the minutia when maybe they should just be getting their legs overall strong before they worry so much about their calves. And most of the calf work, I've done probably 3 sets of calf raises in my entire life. Most of the calf work is from jumping and from sprinting and from running, and especially running hills and stuff like that. So yes, will it affect? Yes, but not in a considerable way. No. All right, man, I got to get moving here. I will do all this. Don't worry. All right, here we go. Can you do croc rows as a beginner, or would you recommend getting normal dumbbell row up to a certain weight before adding them? Yes. So I don't think they should be done as a beginner, mostly because it's hard to know where failure is. So I recommend getting your dumbbell rows up before you really start going bananas on that stuff, without a doubt. I'd probably take maybe 5 good years of training that directly. Doesn't mean you can't ever go to failure, but to really do a true croc row, you have to be a fairly experienced lifter. Caleb says, a dying god coming into human flesh is Celtic Frost's best song, in my opinion. What are your thoughts on the Monotheist album they put out back in the early 2000s? I thought it was absolutely amazing. I thought it was Tom Warrior's, just his vision, his full vision really came to life, more so than any other album they've ever done. I'm so glad they got rid of all the baloney stuff that was like on Into the Pandemonium. I couldn't stand that stuff, and obviously Cold Lake no one wants to talk about. But I thought that was a good realization of what his mind and what his music was all about at that moment. I think it was perfect. Mike Trent says, where do you go for stair climbing? I go over to the high school at the home side of the stadiums. How many floors should I be looking at? I don't count floors. I just count steps. I don't know what you should be looking at. I usually climb minimum is, I don't know, like 1,500 or something. But I didn't start there. I started with 400. And I just did that for, I think, 2 months. And then I worked back, then I did 800. And I started working myself up. So just look, it depends on where you have located, but probably no more. And if you're not in great shape, start with 500 and go from there, or, around there. So Griffin O'Hara says, any recommendation on progression scheme for barbell rows? I seem to always wind up at a similar weight despite my prior training block. Me too. I haven't really figured that out. I did use the 5-3-1 program, with the loading for barbell rows. My barbell row got better, but so did my hip drive, and so did my momentum. So I ended up kind of taking a dump. I don't know if you really need to concentrate on doing the barbell rows with heavier weights all the time. I think doing the movement correctly is much more important. Some people will probably disagree with me on that one. But with the lat stuff, I really try to increase my dumbbell row well over my barbell row just because of the back fatigue. And again, you just start cheating way too much. So I do not know. All I know is it always ends up being really ugly, like belly power clean thing. All right. Couple more here. Can you tell us what your diet is currently like? Do you follow anything specifically? Prioritize protein, etc. Yeah, I always try to prioritize the protein. I've lost, I think, 18 pounds. Probably, I don't know, 2 months or something, 2.5 months. The big thing I did was I just cut out most of the carbs through until dinner. And I just eat whatever I want for dinner, but it's mostly eggs and meat. From the time I wake up until 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock or whenever we eat dinner. So, but even for dinner, obviously I try to get a lot of protein in. I don't really count the protein grams. Some days I do really well. Other days I don't. The other thing I do is I always eat the protein first. Obviously when you're not eating carbs, you always do that. But I'll never, because my main goal is just to drop body weight and obviously body fat. The big thing I do is I never overeat. I refuse to overeat. So as soon as I feel satiated, I just stop eating. And that's been a huge thing for me. But again, very little carbs all the way up until dinner time, and that's made a huge difference. And then during that time, again, I eat just pretty much eggs and some kind of red meat usually. All right, Big Wad says, morning, coach. Hope you're well and wishing you and the kids good luck this season. Thank you very much. It is our first game tonight. I am super, super nervous. I cannot wait, though. I cannot wait. I'm so proud of our kids working. And so maybe next time I'll tell you a story of a new kid coming in and couldn't believe how hard our kids train. He threw up after our warm-up. So, all right, here we go. Regarding your kids' warm-up, can you please define pre-practice, what it means, or can you translate this into a specific number of sets and reps off-season and in-season? All right, the pre-practice during the off-season is rear raises. Rear raises, we do those on an incline, and we just flip over and do plate flies with the same weight, a 5 or 10 pound plate. We do 50 of each. And then we do ab work, which is usually the ab wheel or hanging leg raises or sit-ups. And we also do chin-ups and pull-ups. The goal is to get 50 of ab work, any ab work, 50 of the chin-ups, pull-ups, 50 of the rear raises, and 50 of the flies. That's our warm-up. And the kids come in and they immediately start doing that. That's what they do. During the in-season, because we only have about 40 minutes to train, this kid's still got to get dressed before and after. Our warm-up is only pull-ups, and we always do 1 to 2 sets of neck. So that is our in-season warm-up. They do not have specific numbers of sets, but they do try to get 50 reps. They're obviously not going to get the 50 reps of pull-ups in the in-season. So a lot of times when we are done with our main work, the pull-up and chin-up will be part of our assistance profile. So it's super important for me that the kids maintain and they should get stronger in their upper body. We want them more muscular at the end of the season. I want them to improve their pull-ups, and I want their trap bar to be stronger. So trap bar stronger, bigger upper body, stronger pull-ups. So, all right. Last one. Is it true losing weight will make my Johnson look beefier? Dude, if you've got a huge fupa, man, you got to get rid of that thing. It will make a difference. Huge difference. But most importantly is it will make my Johnson look bigger. Will you losing weight make my wiener look bigger? That is the most important question. All right, we went way over here. My voice is starting to get hoarse. I did my first workout today already. I'm going to go climb some stairs and be awesome. I love you guys and thank you. Have a great weekend. Do something dumb, conditioning-wise if possible. Be smart, but love your family. I will talk to you guys next Friday. Thank you all very much.